fear through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Disciples of Ed here on the Always Next Year podcast. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight, I am joined by Shane. How's it going?
I saw a frost goal last night, and that's about as good as life has gotten in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And also joined by Steve. How's it going, Steve?
Not so bad.
You sound really bad over there. It seems like a...
Things could be better.
Man, I think we're all feeling the same way. The Flyers have lost 4 in a row now. The first one, it's to be expected. It was a shootout loss against the Capitals. They're one of the best teams in the NHL. That's all right. But Friday night, going out there against the Ottawa Senators up in Ottawa, not a very good Senators team. Come out like gangbusters in the first 3 minutes. Pitlick scores a goal to put them up 1-0. After that, 57 minutes of looking like complete dog shit. They lose that one 2-1.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
And after that, the very next night, blowing a 3-0 lead against the New York Islanders, a very good hockey team, but when you have a 3-0 lead at home, you got to hang on to that. They go out there, they blow that one, lose 4-3 in a shootout.
Fucking embarrassing.
And last night, a 5-2 debacle at the hands of the Florida Panthers. Morgan Frost with a silver lining, his first NHL goal in his first NHL game, but overall, a pretty damn bad look for the Flyers.
Fucking embarrassing.
Sorry, I had to get this in there. That's why I put that title in the notes there.
At first, I had no idea what it was.
I thought it was Steve doing it. I didn't think it was you, Rob.
Yep. That's why I put the title in the notes there. Fucking embarrassing, which describes these last 3 losses for the Flyers. No offense. Defense has been spotty. Goaltending has been inconsistent. Guys, what's your takeaway? And Shane, we'll start with you from these last 3 losses here.
First of all, thank you for introducing AMYP to Soundboard. It's something that we have not utilized fully or well, and you just did it pretty masterfully. So well done. Good on you. But in terms of these 4 games, I kind of expect this for the Flyers for pretty much this entire season. It's going to be waves of ups and downs. We're going to beat some teams that we shouldn't in very Philadelphia fashion, and then we're going to lose some teams that we 100% should not lose to, teams like Ottawa.
In very Philadelphia fashion.
In very Philadelphia fashion. It's going to happen. It's entirely new coaching staff. There's new veterans, there's youth coming up, seemingly every 2 or 3 games at this point. We're getting another body coming up. We still have a sophomore goaltender there, and the corpse of Brian Elliott, which cool, he's playing fine ish. This is just kind of this is just going to be a season of kind of waves. So I'm not quite as pissed off as everybody else is right now because I expect it.
I wouldn't say people are pissed off. People are just frustrated. People they expect more of this year's hockey team, and they looked great. They were 4 games over 500, I think, just a couple days ago, and going out there and losing 4 in a row. Yeah, and they look good. They're beating good teams too. Well, I guess Toronto's not really a good team. They just fired Babcock today, but they went up to Boston. They beat them in a shootout. They looked pretty impressive, and then all of a sudden it just kind of all fell apart. Steve, what's your take on the situation here?
I mean, the Flyers have always been very streaky with this core, and I think that's where the frustration comes from, is with the core, which is pretty much just Giroux and Voracek and I guess Couturier, but Couturier can do no wrong. I agree with Shane. Like, this is going to happen. It's just the Flyers. It's what we've grown accustomed to. It does suck, but like Washington, it was a hell of a game outside of that first period, but they really adjusted well and came back, and it was pretty much a dogfight the whole game. Ottawa is the game I'm really more so pissed off about. That's a game they should have won. I don't even think they played all that terribly, but they were just bad enough to lose to the freaking Senators. I didn't see the Islanders game, but it's a Barry Trotz coach team, so obviously they're going to be good.
The Islanders game, that was kind of evenly played. They were lucky to jump out to a 3-0 lead, but there's no reason to blow that lead, even though the Islanders were the better team throughout most of the game. I'm sorry. Continue.
It's worth leading the hockey 3 goals.
Not wrong.
Because you give up that first goal, and you're like, hey, we're still in. You give up that second goal, oh shit. Then
Things are bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Panthers game, that just sucked every which way besides the Morgan Frost goal. Like, I only watched the first 2 periods. I came to the point where it's like, I've already seen the highlight of this game. I'm just going to go to sleep now. And it was a better choice. But
the executive decision on behalf of your body and the sleep total was probably smart. That was a dog shit hockey game.
Yeah, it really was. I think most of us were tuned out by, like, I don't know, probably early in the third period. I know I was. I think I fell asleep about, like, maybe 3 or 4 minutes into the third period or something like that. It was a bad hockey game. It was really boring. The Flyers weren't doing much. Morgan Frost kind of, he had a goal that kind of came out of nowhere, which was a beautiful goal, by the way, going backhand and roofing it over Bobrovsky. Yeah, that was the only highlight of that game last night. Other than that, who was it? Pitlick who scored early in the game? I believe it was. Yeah, Pitlick scored early in the game. No. It was Sanheim. Sanheim scored.
Yeah, Sanheim just shot it and went in.
Pretty much. Yeah, he had a rolling puck and he's able to take advantage of it, kind of fool Bobrovsky a little bit. But really, other than the Morgan Frost goal, they didn't do anything exciting last night.
Yeah, pretty much. But, Morgan Frost, just alone by scoring that goal, provides, hope and some hype for him. Because it was a goal that we kind of thought he could do in the NHL. He did it before in the juniors and everything. To see him do it in his first game, just hopefully he can, just continue his pace and score every goal for the rest of his career. A goal in every game.
Goal a game, 82 goals a year. Sometimes you want to sprinkle in some multi-goal games, though, so hopefully he'll cross 100 goals in the season at some point.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty feasible.
Yeah.
I think it's likely.
And I did like the lines that they put out there. It just didn't translate as well. I mean, putting Frost with Giroux, so in case Frost is overmatched in a face-off circle, then you just move Giroux there and then they switch. I thought that was really smart. I like that. It's giving Frost the best circumstances in his first NHL game. It's just, unfortunately, the rest of the team just wasn't performing.
Yeah,
I like that of AV so far. I mean, he's not wasting time. He's not burying these guys and playing them with the Van de Veldes of the world. They're getting quality line mates up there, and they're getting thrown into the best situation they can be thrown into within this organization.
Right, and this happened before with Jason Atkinson when he was thrown out there with Claude Giroux, and then when he finally got another chance, he was with Couturier and I think Reed in the playoffs, and then after that he was saddled with Zach Ronaldo and Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. So
cream of the crop right there.
They mentioned him last night on the broadcast, and I had a tweet about it, and I
did laugh
when we joined Brotherly Pod. I can't get away from my Jason X and hockey feelings. But man. Yeah, Frost will undoubtedly have a better career, but I will never forget Jason.
Yeah,
X.
let's hope so.
Well, Jason X was a undrafted free agent. He never really got the skating thing down in the NHL, and Berube screwed him over. But Morgan Frost, he's a lot better.
Yeah, Morgan
I think
Frost
we can all agree with that. Hey, Morgan Frost is a stud. But I want to go back and talk about one of the other young talents on this Flyers team last night. He played a big role in them losing to the Florida Panthers. Carter Hart, he gave up 4 goals on, I think it was like 17 shots or something like that. And I mean, the one that was deflected off of Andreoff, who, by the way, has no business being on an NHL sheet of ice. You can't really say much about that, but the other 3 goals, ones that he should have stopped. He's been
bad rebounds.
Yeah, his rebound control has been an issue for him in these early going of this season, at least. He played well for a couple games before last night, but inconsistency is continuing to bug him throughout the season. And Steve, we'll start with you. What do you make of the inconsistency? Do you think it's something that's going to last, or do you think it's something that he will nip in the bud before we get too deep into the season?
Oh no, he'll figure it out. Like Shane said, he's a sophomore goalie. He's only like 21 years old. These are things he's going to figure out. Even usually, like when he does give up that rebound, he's properly positioned to face like a rebound shot. Sometimes the defender gets in the way.
Sometimes the shot's coming off Barkov.
Yeah, that was absurd. I think he's going to figure this out. I will always say this until, it's year 4 and it's still happening. And Sandstrom's coming up and really pushing him. But I really think Carter Hart, he's just so positionally sound. And I think eventually, like, right now it just seems like it's a fluke. Like, there weren't this many rebounds earlier in the season when he was actually doing really bad. I think he figures it out, continues to go back to his elite level play. But again, new system still in front of him. He's still young. Struggles are going to happen, and as long as we get those 6 great games and we get the occasional 2 that are not as good, that's still pretty good goaltending.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think a lot of us here in Philadelphia kind of anticipated a little bit of a sophomore slump from Carter Hart, at least not playing to the level that he did last year. So this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to a lot of us here. But to some of us, it is still a little bit alarming, given the struggles that the team has had in net pretty much over the course of their existence ever since, Ron Hextall. So I can see why it's setting off alarms for some people. But yeah, I agree. It's just a sophomore thing. I think it's something that he can get through as well. Shane, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I don't have any concerns. I think it's a ridiculous question. It's something that we're gonna have to talk about because it's Philadelphia. But it's such a well documented thing, the way that sophomore goaltenders slump and what they kind of face in year 2. Like, they have a full book out on them now. These teams understand what each goaltender's strength and weakness is. That teams are smarter than ever now. They're going to find ways to expose these kids, and it's just all about how they respond. And we've seen Carter Hart this year respond pretty well. Like Steve said, if out of 8 games you're getting 6 quality starts from him, and you get 2 shaky ones, like, he's 20 years old, it's freaking okay. I don't have any long-term concerns for the kid, and as long as he continues to learn from each one of these, we're fine. He's fine. I don't really have any other way to say that.
Yeah, I think we can all agree there. He's going to be all right. It's something that we need to kind of, I won't want to say overlook, but we need to not be concerned by it, because you just alluded to it. NHL goaltenders have a history of not being so great in their sophomore seasons. It doesn't mean they're doomed for their career. It's a sophomore thing. It's the NHL adjusting back to them, and then they have to go ahead and adjust back to the rest of the league. And I trust Carter Hart to do that. So I'm not concerned by it. I know you guys aren't as well. I think one thing that is a little bit concerning, though, is the performance of some of the veteran players. Giroux and Voracek both on pace for less than 60 points this season, which is very low by their standards. Also, James Van Riemsdyk only has, I believe, 9 points through 21 games. Guys, and Shane, we'll start with you this time. What's your take on the performance of the veterans, and what can they do to get their game going?
I have no idea. Everyone knows that I actually like Jake Voracek, and I do still find value in him. I understand the frustrations, but he's a good hockey player. He's maddening, but he's good. He is not as bad as he is right now. Claude Giroux, everyone knows the way that I feel about him. He's one of my favorite all-time Flyers, and he is very much so like Steve Couturier, and he can do no wrong. But he's not shooting, or he's not scoring at a clip that you would hope that he would. JVR, I've never been a fan of in my life, so I just kind of write that off. That just kind of is what it is. But I don't know. They're 3 established veterans with 3 established track records of point totals and expectations, and I don't know if it's the fact that they, for 4 years, I mean JVR aside, for 4 years it was Hackstall there, and look, who's intimidated by that? Who has to fear anything there? If you're not performing to your expectation, fucking nothing's going to happen, because you're Claude Giroux, you're Jake Voracek, you're James Van Riemsdyk. But under AV, who has absolutely not a care in the world of what he says in the media, like, he's going to throw you under the bus, and he's going to expect more. He's going to demand more. And I don't think this is something they've had to really deal with in this kind of a way for the better part of this decade. So I think they're probably just pressing, but man, I can't figure it the fuck out. Like, I have no idea what's going on with them.
Yeah, it's really baffling to me, especially when you come to G and Jake. Those guys are G. The past couple seasons, he's been the guy you can count on for 80 to 90 plus points. He had a 100-point season just 2 years ago. Voracek, you can always count on him to be in the high 70s to low 80s, somewhere around there. And the fact that they're both on pace for less than 60 right now through a quarter of the season, it's hard to tell what's up with them. Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
I still am a Jake Voracek fan, but I'm leaning more towards he's got to get traded. Claude Giroux, I just think he's going to be fine. Claude Giroux's played fine. He's played well. He's made plays. It's just not finding the back of the net.
Yeah, it's kind of the way his season started 5 years ago, I want to say, where he didn't score a goal for the first 14 games. Like, he's still creating chances. He's still, like, I don't mean to cut you off there, Steve, but
No, it's fine.
like, he is going to be fine. He's still Claude Giroux because he could do no wrong.
Yeah, like, Drew's still playing well. Voracek, like, seems to have his lapses, which he always seems to have, and I think maybe I'm, like, critiquing him a little bit more than I ever did because I wasn't 100% sure if, like, he was good. I don't know what I was trying to go there. I started adjusting my volume. Voracek, I think I'm starting to critique more because I think if you trade him, you can get some better value for cap and, like, just other necessary needs. And AV, I think, seems to be calling out Voracek more, which I understand because he's not producing like he should be, but they still are both, like, on par with, like, some of, like, their averages of points in the past few years. Like, Giroux, he's had, like, 80 and 100 points the past 2 years, and before that he was around the 60s, 70s. Voracek was kind of the same, where, like, he maxed out, like, 80-ish points, and he was also getting, like, the 60s, so they're kind of on par with, like, their very least productive seasons with the Flyers. As long as we're winning and other people are stepping up, that would be great. But it seems it's only the Couturier line that's stepping up.
Yeah, and that's a concern for the team right now. My biggest concern is Van Riemsdyk. He's only got 4 goals in the season. That's what you paid him to do. You paid him to score goals. He's not an assist guy. He's not going to have high assist totals year in and year out. But he's a guy who you should be able to count on. Last year he was over the 30-goal mark. You should be able to count on him to consistently be somewhere between the high 20s and low 30s in goal totals. And he's had his chances this year. He's had a number of scoring opportunities that he hasn't been able to bury, that he has been able to bury in the past. So the fact that he has 4 goals, I'm led to believe that he's going to get going at some point. But at the same time, to me, it's concerning that he's not converting these scoring opportunities the way that he has been in years past.
There's also, like, a really simple solution to this, and it's with the power play.
Yeah, I was going to get into that. You can go ahead with it.
It's just swap Voracek and Giroux to, like, their natural, like, spots on the power play that they've done so well in. It's just Michel Therrien just needs to acknowledge, I tried, it's wrong. Go back to what you've done before, and everything
I don't care that they're on opposite sides occasionally. Like, it's good to have versatile looks. Like, I'm cool with
rotating.
GB.
Yeah.
Yes. But, like, if you're getting a 2-minute power play, and just say for argument's sake, you get the entire 2 minutes in that zone, awesome. First of all, your legs are going to die. But if you're in that zone for 2 full minutes, like, a minute 40 of that should really probably have everyone in their natural scoring positions in what works. And if you want to try someone behind the net, awesome. If you want to swap Jake and G, from right side to left side, awesome. Whatever. Give it a go, see if it works out. 20 to 30 seconds tops, but you can't start. I mean, how many times do we see complete dysfunction for the first 30 seconds just trying to establish puck control in that zone before it gets fucking cleared, and then the second unit comes out to save the day because they're wonderful in sex on ice. Like, it's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, they go ahead and they waste a quarter of the power play right off the bat, and then once they do that, it's just discombobulated. I completely agree with you guys that Giroux and Voracek need to be on the correct side of the ice for the majority of the time out there in order for this power play to work. And we've seen it in years past when Giroux is on that left side wall and Voracek is on that right side wall. Giroux and Gostisbehere in particular have that great thing going where they set each other up for one-timers, and it works out well for both of them. And so that's something that could benefit Gostisbehere as well, who's another guy who's struggled throughout the course of this season. If they do that, and if they have Giroux feeding him the puck off the left side wall for those one-timers, and not only is Gostisbehere going to get the goal totals up, but also Van Riemsdyk out in front of the net will be able to get some of those deflections as well. So that's something I think it's a really basic fix, and I think that Michel Therrien needs to stop overlooking that.
Right, and it's another thing where, Simmons was so great in that net front presence on the power play. JVR similarly can, be that presence, but he's kind of different, but, he can at least, accept a pass and either make another pass or just at least, open things up for a bit. He's not as quick on, a shot like Simmons was, but he can still, quickly evaluate a play to see if there's another move or at least try to get it in like Simmons did. He's not going to do it as often and as well as Simmons did, but he's still going to be able to produce slightly less than Simmons did on the power play. I just don't understand why they went away from it. I don't understand why they fired Joe Mullen 2 years ago. It's
Neither
just
do I. He was the
bizarre.
only coach who should have been retained.
Agreed.
And of course, he's the only one, or one of the ones who wasn't. Typical Flyers. But yeah, and also one of the things about the way the power play used to be, Giroux has one of the most wicked one-timers from that left face-off dot. And
He's right up there with Ovechkin on just owning that left spot.
yeah, it's absolutely filthy when he's positioned there and he's able to get those one-timers. But with the way it is right now, he doesn't have that opportunity. And that's a huge weapon for the power play if they can get back to that.
I absolutely agree.
All right, so I'm sorry, what's that?
I said, as do I.
All right, so we're going to try to look at some of the positives here. There haven't been a whole lot over the past 4 games, but the positive that we had last night, Morgan Frost scoring his first NHL goal, an absolute beauty. He walked out in front of the net, lifted a backhander over the shoulder of Sergei Bobrovsky. Guys, and Steve, we'll start with you. How important is it for Morgan Frost to get that first NHL goal off his shoulders right off the bat?
Oh, it was fantastic because he's wearing Danny Briere's number and scored a very Danny Briere
I
goal.
knew you were going to say it.
And then he had a very, very slight Danny Briere celebration.
Yeah, not as emphatic on the fist pump, but close to it.
It wasn't the full windmill fist pump, but yeah. I thought he was going to punch that defenseman in the dick, though.
Yeah, Danny did that a few times. Danny punched a ref once.
Yeah, I believe it.
It was a playoff game, I remember. He was against Montreal, and he went behind the net to do his celebration after the goal, and he punched the ref. But yeah, I agree. It's important to get that first goal off the off his shoulders right away. It's a huge confidence boost for him going forward.
Yeah, literally, it was the only true positive of that game. So that's something good to see. I mean, you call him up to help our offense. He scores, but not much else goes right in the game, unfortunately.
Nothing else went right in that game. Yeah, that was brutally annoying.
Yeah, Shane, what's your takeaway? Is this a big confidence thing for Morgan Frost to score right off the bat, or do you think in some way it might be beneficial for him to struggle a little bit and kind of baptism by fire?
No. I first of all, I don't believe in any of that shit. Come in, be productive. He struggled to get here. He's been this highly touted prospect for 3 years now? 2 years?
Yep.
2 full seasons of the absurd point totals in juniors. Struggled a little bit in first of all, didn't make the roster. Saw Farabee get called up first. Still down there, still producing. Finally gets called up. This was that fuck you moment for him. Yeah, no, I'm here and I'm 100% not going back down to the AHL. So to
That's
me,
why I thought he was going to punch the defenseman in the dick.
he should have punched him just to give us
I'm
something
here,
else to talk
I
about.
score, and I'm a bully.
100%. He is Philadelphia. But yeah, man, I mean, he's a really creative player on a team that lacks creativity. And that should excite everyone. So I think so long as his stick can find the puck, he's going to be a dangerous player. So I think it's great that he scored in his first night. Look, again, we're going to go through ups and downs in terms of team wins and losses. But I think for these young guys, it's really important that they feel good throughout the process individually, despite the team production. Farabee came up and he was all over the score sheet and all over the taken off the score sheet for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And he's kind of in a little bit of a cold spell right now. And I think the natural fuel of competition right now of Frost, who he competed with in the preseason and through training camp, Frost is up, scores a goal on night one, and Hayes wasn't there to fuck it up. So I think it's a really good thing all the way around.
So two other guys who have played very well for them, the two leading scorers for this team right now, Travis Konechny, Oscar Lindblom, both have been really consistent throughout the course of the season so far. They've kind of dipped off a little bit in terms of their points per game. They're both averaging over a point per game through like the first 15, something like that. And then as the rest of the team has trailed off offensively, they've gone the same way. But still playing very good hockey, creating a lot of chances. They've been the most productive line for the Flyers by far throughout the course of the season, teamed up with Sean Couturier out there. What do you make of their performance? And Shane, we'll start with you this time. And can they keep it up?
Yeah, I think they can keep it up. I think chemistry is something that, obviously it shows up in the score sheet, but chemistry for me is one of those things that the eye test rings probably the truest. And you can watch out there and you can see when a team wins a hockey game they have no business winning. When they're like, man, some pucks just really bounced the right way tonight. Never happened in Philadelphia's history, but we've seen it elsewhere. With this line, everything's so crisp. The way that these guys just know where each other are. The risks that they take aren't risks anymore because of the speed that is out there, some of the creativity that is out there, some of the toughness along the boards that you get from Sean Couturier. Everything that you would want in a forwards line is represented there, and they gel so smoothly together. Each one of their strengths is on full display each and every single time they take the ice, whether they're in the offensive zone or whether they're in the defensive zone. Like that is their transitional offense. It is literally only that line. There is not another line right now that is sitting there that they can throw out into the defensive end and say on a consistent basis, I think we have a shot at an odd man rush or to reestablish puck control in the offensive zone. That's it. This to me is the most the sexiest eye test line that the Flyers have had in years.
Yeah, and honestly, it could be fair to say that without that line, the Flyers might be trending towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference right now if those guys weren't producing the way that they are. But Steve, I know you've got a TK and Lindy Boner over there. What do you have to say about those two guys and that line as a whole?
Oh, this is their complete breakout year, and I'd love to see it because, listen, Lindblom made a couple poor plays against the Panthers that I noticed, but I could still think to myself as I'm watching it, oh, he still does it wrong. This will still work out. I just think Oscar Lindblom is an infallible hockey player. He just does the right decision, right play every time. It's just, you're just going to be this 2 times every 21 games where it goes the opposite way, which is still pretty good stat. Konechny, he probably fits Vigneault's system perfectly compared to everyone else on this team right now. Couturier and Hayes are the defensive centers. Couturier produces offense, Hayes not so much yet. But just seeing them together with that Couturier line, I don't remember the last time I saw a line that really complements each other so well since maybe Hartnell, Briere, Leno in the playoffs.
That was so much fun. Out of
But
nowhere, just so fun.
Yeah, I understand why like they've been broken up right now. I understand like the need for that. I think it was connecting with Drew and Frost.
Hmm.
But this is a line that I just think whenever you need to, you just put them back together and they'll produce. Obviously, they had to be broken up just to like see if we can get everybody else going with how well all three of these players have been playing. But I can see them being split up every now and then putting right back together and just immediately producing again because they have that chemistry. They complement each other perfectly. So once eventually Hayes gets going, Nolan Patrick's finally over his migraines, Scott Lawton's back, then we really have this extremely deep team that should be able to produce well and then get us back on the winning track and then, having second seed in the Metro. You never know.
With that being said, Scott Lawton, they're saying he might be back, I believe, by Saturday against Calgary, which could shake some things up. It could mean that line ends up back together. But yeah, they've been, when they've been together as a line, they've been electrifying to watch, which tells me they're going to be back together before long. I won't give it more than a handful of games before those three are back together out there scoring goals again. Really, they've carried the team throughout the lion's share of the season. They have the two leading scorers. Actually, I think it's the three leading scorers. I forget
They
where
they're
Toure
the
ranks on the team. Is he third?
Yeah, he's third. And then it's Provorov, Giroux, and Voracek tied with 13.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Yeah, those three guys, by far the most productive players on the team. You put them out there, that line is absolutely electrifying to watch. So I wouldn't give it very long until they're back together. But speaking of that, the Flyers moving on from their 4-game losing streak, or at least hoping to move on from it. Their next 3 games, they're at Carolina tomorrow night, which is seemingly an impossible place for the Flyers to play. They never, ever win there. Then Saturday afternoon, a Saturday matinee game. Another thing that they never win, those fucking matinee games at the Wells Fargo Center. That is against Calgary. And then after that, home against the Vancouver Canucks and Lane Vigneault, one of his former teams. Out of those next 3 games, and Shane, we'll start with you this time. Are there any intriguing matchups? And what can the Flyers do to kind of shake themselves out of the slump over these next couple games?
Well, look, I think that we're just going to experience waves of positives and negatives regardless. Like, that's just what's going to happen. I think the game I'm most excited for is Calgary, just because I want to watch Johnny Hockey live. But I think from like a competition standpoint, like we beat Carolina 2 weeks ago now. I think it'll be like about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was a pretty sloppy game, and we ran away in the third period. But that was at home, though. It's always different down at that.
It definitely is.
They play in.
They're a fun team, though. And I think that just from a competitor standpoint, I think that game is going to be the one that is going to be the most telling overall, because we're very evenly matched. If you're just going on point totals and some of the struggles of each of the other two teams, like we're all in that like mid 20s point. Actually, I guess Carolina's probably mid 20s too. What does Carolina got? 28 points? 27?
I think they were right around where we were a couple games ago. I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm not sure if they pulled a little bit ahead of us.
I think they're like 27 or 28 points, but the other two teams are like 23, 24.
Yeah, Carolina's got 27. They're 3 points ahead.
And they're significantly better, like just eye test wise, than the other
teams.
They've
also won their last 4 games. So they're playing some pretty good hockey right now.
Yeah, so they're due for a loss, and we are 100% not due for anything because it's Philadelphia. So we'll see what happens. But personally, I'm excited to see Johnny Hockey in Philadelphia. But I think from a competitor standpoint and like the most telling of the 3 matchups, it's going to be the Carolina one in Carolina.
Steve, what do you got over these next 3 games? What are you looking forward to the most as far as the matchups go?
I agree with Shane. I think Carolina is the toughest one. It's the division opponent. I really like their team a lot. I like Rod Brind'Amour as a coach. I like what they've been doing to build this team and how like they basically just do everything with the analytics and everything. Calgary, just pray that Zach Ronaldo is scratched so he doesn't hurt any of our players.
You know he's going to come out and score a fucking hat trick if he does play, right?
No, he might just score a ridiculous, like, stupid slap shot goal that goes in. But on that, it was some Flyers fan, I don't remember who it was, they retweeted, it was like the Zach Ronaldo experience, and the Flames Twitter was like, and we're starting the period, and then big hit by Ronaldo, and 20 seconds later, Avs 1-0.
Oh man,
So yeah,
that's funny. That's all too used to that here in Philly.
Yep. But everybody would like love Zach Ronaldo for no reason. It's so stupid. But yeah, Western Conference games are like a bit tougher to like gauge. We're at least home this time against them, so that's nice. We should do well, but I really do think that Carolina game is like the big one. A matchup I think is going to be interesting is Sean Couturier's line against Elias Peterson in Vancouver, against Vancouver. See how well Sean Couturier's defensive prowess and how well he can handle how legitimately fantastic Elias Peterson is.
Yeah, that'll certainly be an interesting matchup to watch. I'm going to go with the Carolina game as well, being the most interesting out of the three. Obviously, a divisional matchup before two Western Conference matchups, so it's important standings-wise. The Flyers trailing Carolina by 3 points, and having beaten them earlier in the season up here in Philadelphia, going down there to Raleigh, where, as I said before, they never, ever, ever play well down there. I can't even remember the last time the Flyers won a game down in Carolina. Can either of you remember the last time the Flyers won down there? Yeah, it's been a long ass time.
I hardly pay attention to home and aways and everything.
Yeah, it's been forever since the Flyers have beaten the Hurricanes down at their home arena down there. But I think there's a good chance that they could come out and they could put an end to that tomorrow night. The Flyers due for a win, even though, Shane, you say they're never due for anything. I think they are due for a win tomorrow night. And they're also due for a win in Carolina. And despite their recent struggles, despite their recent inability to put the puck in the net, I think they are still a good hockey team. They're just kind of going through some early season lumps. I think that they sort it all out tomorrow night and they pull out a victory. One of you going to say something? I thought one of you was.
Yeah, man, you said that they were due in two separate categories, and look, that's basic math. Cancels each other out. That's a loss.
God damn it. All right, well,
muster up something else. See if you can, tilt those tables again. What else are they due for?
I've got nothing.
That's what I'm saying. That's an L.
All right, well, they're due for a win. I'll put it that way. I'll eliminate the thing about down in Carolina. They're due for a win. So does that cancel out them?
Look, you said this on a radio show, podcast show, that we totally don't ever edit. This is out in the stratosphere now, my friend. This is up to the gods. We'll see how this goes.
Oh, man. All right, well, if they do win, you can thank me.
I'm going to thank you regardless.
Yeah, we'll do.
You're a swell guy. You jump. Look, the people and listeners don't know this, but Rob is currently dealing with AIDS, very severe, and we almost couldn't have this podcast tonight because it was almost his time. But he muscled through it because the DoE listeners deserved one more show, and we never know when the last one will be in his dire critical need.
Yeah, Rob, I might be dead after the show.
You may expire.
I just might. I've been feeling like I've been about to expire for the past 48 hours now.
See, so everyone should be. We're all thanking you right now. I hope the Flyers win for you, man. The Make-A-Wish Foundation goes to you.
All right. Well, as I said, they're due for it. I said it in too many ways, apparently, which means it must be true. They are due for a win tomorrow night, and it is going to happen. So, yeah, that's my final take. The Flyers are going to win in Carolina. All right, so taking a look around the rest of the NHL, Steve, you brought something up yesterday. Corey Schneider released by the New Jersey Devils, probably something that was a little bit overdue. He's been garbage lately, and the team hasn't helped him out a whole lot. You want to talk a little bit about that and your thoughts on it?
Oh, man, injuries really killed this guy's career, it seems like. I hope he can get back. I've always liked Corey Schneider. Let's backtrack to the MySpace the death of MySpace days and then the beginning of Facebook. So I'm not sure which one it was, where it's like a MySpace bulletin or like a
Live
Facebook
journal.
note thing. I was clamoring for the Flyers to trade like a first round pick and like one of our, great prospects at the time for Corey Schneider, just so we could have a legitimate franchise goalie at the time. Corey Schneider has elite numbers throughout his career. He's fallen off a cliff recently, but that's ever since like he's been hurt and playing for a very shitty New Jersey Devils team. It was Corey Schneider and Josh Harding at the time. I was like, these are the two guys we need to focus on. Trade. They'll take over. We'll finally have a goalie. Obviously, never happened. Never worked out. The Devils ended up with neither Luongo or Schneider towards the end of their contracts. But Corey Schneider was a fantastic goalie. Guy that I always wanted on the Flyers. The guy's like half Swiss. How can you argue with that?
Oh man.
Like, he would have added to our ginger team, the Voracek, Schneider, and Giroux. It would have been great. But it's really unfortunate to see it. At the very least, it's on a Devils team. So fuck the Devils.
Yeah.
But he's a guy I think, he'll take this in stride. As long as he doesn't get hurt again, I think they'll call him back up and then he starts doing decently again. But just one of those sadder stories where, injuries kind of derail a guy's career. And I didn't realize he was 33 years old, but
Yeah, he's not young anymore. That's one
seriously?
thing going against him.
that's
When
a
you
huge
started talking about MySpace, I was like, you're fucking wrong. He's not that old. I had to go back and Google, and you're, as always, Steve, correct. That man is old.
Yeah, I didn't realize it until I was looking up today, preparing myself for this. But yeah, he had such elite numbers in like 30 game seasons that I was right in my analysis that we should have traded for him. We just never did. But yeah, he was even elite with the Devils his first like two and a half years, where he was still backing up the corpse of Martin Murder. But yeah, it does suck to see like a guy that was such a phenomenal goalie who never really got the shot that he deserved, and when he did, he was only able to get about 2-ish years in his prime, and then injuries derailed it.
Yeah, you know how I can tell that Corey Schneider is old now? Back in the MySpace days, I was arguing with people about Peter Forsberg when he was with the Flyers and Jaromir Jagr when he was with the Rangers. That was a long-ass time ago.
Man, I don't remember arguing about anything on social medias ever.
Are you even... I know you're on Facebook, but you're like barely on social media, though.
Yeah, because
He's
I'm
on Twitter a lot now.
Yeah, you are on Twitter a lot.
I used to be on Twitter a lot, but for the last several weeks, I have said, F the Twitter world, I'm just going to take a nap. And that's pretty much been my motto now.
Hey, man,
I was wondering about that radio silence. I haven't seen your posts pop up in my Twitter feed, which I refresh like every 15 seconds.
Sorry, man. I'll get back to
Trust
it.
me. I get carpal tunnel in just my fucking thumb whenever it's like a trade deadline day.
Well, that's true. Me too. That's a big day, though. That's
Yeah,
important.
trade
That's our
deadline day,
Christmas.
beginning of free agencies, all that, just constant.
Yep.
Also, I try to check it every time around noon for waivers just to see. And the one time I didn't, Corey Schneider was
Corey
placed on
Schneider.
waivers.
Oh, man.
I didn't see it until about 9 hours later, which is a surprise.
All right, so big news elsewhere around the National Hockey League today. Mike Babcock out in Toronto after a rough start to the season. We all remember he was hired at the same time or around the same time that Dave Haxtell was hired here in Philadelphia. Big debate as to whether or not the Flyers should have gone for Babcock or Haxtell. Turns out it didn't matter. Neither one of them won a playoff series in their respective city. And Shane, we'll start with you this time. What do you make of the Babcock news?
I don't know, man. It was overdue for one. The hiring didn't necessarily make sense to begin with. But
Really?
I don't, dude. The hockey's changed. Like, he's not an overly analytical guy. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I
Why?
don't know, this is like the beginning of like them really turning over to the analytics, and they still had Lou Lamoriello running the ship and everything then with Brendan Shanahan.
I don't know, man. To me, First of all, so here's my whole issue with Toronto is hockey's always better when they're good. Like it's
it's hilarious when they're bad.
It is for like a year or two, and you're like, this is great. But like, no, they're a major market hockey team, and like it's the same thing as the Knicks being bad for 15 years in a row. It's not good for basketball. It would be like if the Lakers were shit for basketball. Like it's not good.
There was that one year.
There was that singular year, yes. And they got Lonzo Ball out of it, which is just hilarious. But it's just like, fuck, man. They deserved better. There is talent there. I feel like there's some contract issues there that is going to make it hard to have any type of real legitimate depth. But
they're right up against the cap ceiling right now.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but they're up against it. They don't have much room to maneuver there.
I mean, Steve, are they? Who is taking over? I didn't even look. It is okay. I didn't know if that was just who you assumed was doing it or
you didn't
what.
take a look, or you just didn't believe what I texted in our group chat.
I couldn't remember what you texted in the group chat. I'm currently reading another article right now. I care deeply, deeply. But
you literally just glanced at that text and you're like, "Fuck it, I don't care."
Listen,
Steve's probably wrong. Steve wanted Dave Woodcraft as a Flyers head coach. Fuck him.
That's not true. I value your opinion, Steve. You're a very smart man, especially when it comes to hockey.
He also knows his shit about Sheldon Keefe too. I remember, Steve, I believe you had him on the radar for the Flyers before they hired AV.
Yep.
I did, yeah. He's just like that exciting up-and-comer AHL coach who's done extremely well in the AHL. He's developed quite a few of these Maple Leafs players, and I think that's why he's going to be like the perfect fit there. He has a more open style game, so I think like the Nylander, Mitch Marner, Kasperi Kapanen, like they'll all do well, and this I think was probably the perfect time. I feel like Dubas was looking for like the right circumstance to do the firing. Maybe that's why you hired Dave Haxtell. Who knows? But yeah, I think this was probably the time to move on from him. Mike Babcock's on an 8-year deal, and once Lou was gone, you had a feeling like Babcock was going to last that much longer. But if they kept winning, maybe won a playoff series, he would have like kept buying some time. But with how much they've struggled this year, I understand the change, and I think it's going to benefit the Maple Leafs a lot.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with that. By the way, going to go completely off topic here. Breaking news from Philadelphia. Ben Simmons has hit a regular season 3-point shot.
Yeah, we knew that was going to happen tonight.
Anyway.
As soon as we started recording.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand here. We are not a Sixers podcast. If you want that, go to listen to TJ's One of Us. But back to the topic at hand. Yeah, I agree. It was the right time for Babcock to be fired. That name's going to be a tongue twister for me. Always has been.
Babcock?
Yeah, Babcock. I got it right that time. Okay. Yeah, it was the right time for him to be fired. A talented team up there in Toronto hasn't been getting the job done. I think they're right around hockey 500, but they're well below actual 500, which means they've won less than half their games. Really underperforming for a team of their talent level, especially with the guys that they have up top. So yeah, I think what they really needed was just a change of pace in the locker room. Babcock, a veteran head coach, kind of a hard-nosed kind of guy. You can ask Mike Commodore about that.
Yeah.
Maybe the younger players aren't quite as receptive to it, so maybe Sheldon Keefe, a guy who spent his previous years coaching in the AHL, coaching those young players, they could be a lot more receptive to him. So I think I agree with you, Steve. They're going to be for the better because of this.
I agree. And you know what? I will just say this. Mike Babcock is pretty fucking overrated.
Yeah. And talent all the time.
Yeah. Like
in the words of Mike Commodore, he's the biggest scumbag fraud in the NHL.
Yeah. Mike Commodore was very good defenseman pre-lockout, but I don't know.
Have you guys followed that, by the way, his beef with Babcock on Twitter?
I did, and he was like, I've been living for this day, I think was his tweet.
Hey, did he tweet that today? I was looking for it. I didn't see it. He did. That's awesome. That's fucking hilarious.
Hold on, I'm trying to bring up the Mighty Ducks roster when he brought them to the Cup.
That was pretty deep. Didn't they have Solane still at that point?
They had
Solani
Korea.
played forever.
Yeah.
They had Adams.
Did they have
they
Korea? I didn't think they had Korea anymore. I thought he was playing for
No,
St. Louis at that point.
This was the year that Korea died. It was 2003. It was where Scott Stevens murdered Paul Korea, and you could see Paul Korea's breath in his visor, and then he just came back to life and scored, I think, the game-winning goal.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the wasn't Babcock their coach in '07 when they won the Cup?
No, that was Rainey Carlisle.
Ah, okay. All right, well, I stand corrected. Babcock, that's right. He won it in Detroit the next year.
Yeah, he had Sammy Paulson, who was a great defensive guy. Rob Niedermeyer was a great defensive forward. Keith Carney was decent. No, okay, this was impressive what he did with the Ducks, but he really rode Jean-Sebastien Giguère's hot streak to that finals appearance.
The worst good goalie of all time, or should I say the best bad goalie of all time?
I don't know. I think he was very
Consistently,
decent.
he was literally always out of position, but he was just that season alone somehow able to make so many ridiculous saves when his team needed him to. It was like a flash in the pan for him because to me, really, he wasn't that great of a goalie. He just kind of came out of nowhere that year.
Yeah, I guess, but yeah. Oh well. Doesn't matter. Bobcat's overrated. He literally stumbled into the Detroit team, and they probably only hired him because they upset him in that first round. They upset Detroit in that first round.
It could be the case. Anyway, he should have won 2 cups in Detroit. There's no reason to lose that Game 7 against the Penguins in '09.
Oh, Fleury was fucking absurd.
Absurd.
In that final
He
minute.
was, that's true, but still, fuck them for losing to the Penguins, though. Nobody wants to see that shit. All right, so moving on to our next little inner segment bit here, that is the Ask Disciples of Ed. We got 3 questions in from some of our followers, and we'll start off with the first one. Did the Flyers call up Morgan Frost too soon, or is the timing just right? And Shane, we'll start with you.
No, I think it was the right time. I don't really think that it would have mattered had he started the year here, had he come up 10 games in, 15, like whatever. I trust Alain Vigneault at this point to bring these guys up and put them in the best position, regardless of when they're being called up, to find success early and to gain some confidence. They're not, like I said, they're not getting buried with 4th line scrubs. They're getting some talented wingers on their side. So yeah, it was a good time to call him up, and it was good people to put him with, and it was a corner 3 as I'm watching it now.
Oh shit, even more impressive. Not straight away. All right, Steve, what's your take on it? Flyers call up Frost too soon, or is the perfect time for it?
That was kind of the perfect time. He was killing it in the AHL. We needed offensive help. Obviously, so far, it hasn't led to a win, but it led to him proving why we called him up. And it is hilarious because Dave Isaac had that article saying he wasn't NHL ready, like 2 days prior. I didn't even read the article because I read the headline. I'm like, I'm not reading this.
Yeah, a lot of people were giving him shit on it for Twitter after that, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I agree with both of you guys. It's the right time for it. The offense has been struggling. They need a spark. Also, something I mentioned on the OMB Puckcast, which I was on Monday night. It's the right time because attendance has been woefully down for the Flyers, a lot lower than it normally is. A couple games in the 16,000 range, which is just about unheard of for them. They're usually at least 18,000 people in attendance. So empty seats at the Wells Fargo Center. I think that calling up Morgan Frost could spark some fan interest and put some asses in seats there. So I think it's the right time for that as well. So moving on to our second question here. Given his recent struggles, should the Flyers send Farabee back to Lehigh to hone his game, or would they be better off letting him work through the struggles at the NHL level? And Steve, we'll start with you.
What struggles? What struggles?
I think
He's had some pretty bad turnovers.
Some of the he's had some pretty bad turnovers. He's been
He's just playing
absent
risky.
from the goal sheet the score sheet the past few games.
All right, well, he's playing his game. And you know what? He's playing this game that still isn't totally against the system. So I don't see these as struggles. I see these as like shit that went wrong. That's not really a bad thing. Like It is when it gets into the back of our net. I think it was against Florida. He made the turnover and ended up being, I think, that ridiculous Barkov goal. And like he slammed his stick on the ice, and then when he got to the bench, he just completely broke his stick. I like to see that. It means that he cares, and that means that he wants to do better. But I think he's just played too well overall to send him back down. Especially now when like we need the offensive help, he can provide that. You don't send him down. I know like before the season I said like, hey, yeah, if they're struggling, you can set him down, call the next guy. Ratcliffe's hurt right now. There was another guy. Abi Kubel is subject to waivers. That's a risky thing unless you're Paul Holmgren and you want to gauge trade interest. You keep Farabee up. How he's reacting to his quote-unquote struggles, I like to see. He's frustrated, but he's going to get better. So you keep him up. You just keep him away from Hayes, and he'll continue to produce points.
Yeah, that's right. Keep them off the same line. That way you don't have Hayes taking away a point every night from him. Shane, what's your response to this?
Yeah, don't yo-yo. I think that you should. First of all, I think that all of Philadelphia should get on board with the fact that this is going to be an up and down season, no matter what you think. That's all this team is going to be. And part of that wave is going to be the wave of some of these youth. They're going to have, 4 or 5, 8 game stretches where they're, white hot, lighting the world on fire. And then they're going to go through some times where, look, people figured them out. They put their better lines on them, more defensive forward groups on them, and they're, they're playing some turnover happy hockey. But if you're going to sit there and just, put a kid in timeout every time he fucks up at 20 years old, well, who's that good for in the long run? You're not teaching them how to deal with adversity. They're not teaching them how to learn. They're saying, we gave up on you. Go down, fix it down there at a competition level that isn't going to offer the same type of strengths and weaknesses they're going to face every single night. It just doesn't make any sense. No, don't yo-yo these kids.
It's really just a boost their confidence kind of thing.
Yeah, and no one needs to play Rice anymore. Like, just saddle up, sack up, stop being such a pansy. Go out there and play some hockey.
I won't lie, I was kind of concerned that Farabee was like, his ice time was kind of minimized in that third period against the Capitals, but he was still out there. Which
he was out there, but that was the night that he turned the puck over like 6 times.
Listen, they still put him out there in the third period, which means that
more than Hack
knows what he's doing. Hacksaw will just completely bench Konechny. Carson Twarynski, I don't think he got a shift in that third period against the Capitals. It worked out. Andrioff got 1, and that's because he can take a face-off every 10 times.
Mm-hmm. And still fucking sucks, though, Andrioff.
I don't mind Andrioff. I just prefer better players.
Well, that's a much more, I guess, subtle way of saying what I just said, is that he sucks.
He's probably a quad A guy, which sucks. But he could produce. If Scott Long was the center, maybe he could produce. Raffle going back to a wing on like a third line, maybe Andrioff could like do some more. But I liked a little bit of what I've seen from Andrioff, but I'm not quite agreeing with you, but I'm kind of agreeing with you.
Well, to be fair, Andrioff did score a goal last night, just for the other team.
Yeah. But yeah, I would let Andrioff, just kill it in the minors and then call up these other guys, non-waiver exempt, unless you plan on keeping up Avi Kubel for good.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm not a fan of yo-yoing Farabee between the Flyers and Lehigh Valley. I would rather see him, if he's struggling here at the NHL level, which he has been over the past few games, I just want to see him work through it. I don't want to see him, he has a few bad games and then they send him down to Lehigh Valley because they think that he'll be better off honing his game there. I think that the best way to get better at your craft is to do it against the highest level of competition, which is right here at the NHL. As I've called it before, baptism by fire. I think it works better for a lot of players, to be learning against the best as opposed to learning against guys who are career minor leaguers. So that's the biggest reason right there why I would keep Farabee up here at the NHL level. So our third, I'm sorry, what's that?
I 100% agree. He's proved that he can produce at this level. He's 19 years old. He's going to struggle every now and then. You keep him up. He's showing the fire that he's messed up. in at least one game, maybe a couple games as well. But he's going to get through it. He plays the game right. He plays it smart. He'll eventually get through these struggles, realize what he's doing, work with the coaching staff, and then he'll get past it.
Yeah, and
I
he
think
doesn't
he's
seem
shown that he
overwhelmed
belongs.
either.
Yeah, he's shown that he belongs.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. All right, so moving on to our final question here. And Shane, we'll start with you this time. What letter grade would you give AV and his coaching staff through the quarter mark of the season?
I would give. I'm gonna go individual. I'm gonna say AV. I would give like a B plus too. I think that my main concern with him coming in was he going to give the youth the opportunities, and he squashed it immediately. So I think that's pretty fucking great. The thing that's super concerning about that is the fact that he's so trusting of his vets, and his vets aren't producing. So two sides to that, but I do think that if your veteran core right now may not be here in 3 years, whereas theoretically these rookies are. So I think he's got the right idea and mindset right now. So like B plus for AV. Michelle Therrien and Mike Yeo. I'm gonna go with like a B minus B. I'm frustrated by the power plays, top unit, but I'm really, really encouraged by the second unit. And then the PK has been really fun to watch this year. They've been really good. That's been such a breath of fresh air. So we'll go like a B in that one.
Okay. Steve, what do you got for a letter grade for the coaching staff so far?
I pretty much 1,000% agree with everything Shane said. I don't know if I can add anything else. It's just swap Voracek and Giroux, and then Terry and the special teams
gets a B.
Bumped up, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to lump them all together, and I'm going to go with a B. AV, I think, has done a great job with the younger players, just having faith in them to produce and, work their way through the slumps, as we just talked about. I think he's done a good job with his personnel decisions. The only I would give the coaching staff as a whole a B plus, but the power play takes a little bit away from that. So I'm going to give them a B, a flat B for the coaching staff.
It is strange how we've had such a shit second power play unit for so many years now that we have a new coach, the second unit is seemingly great because of the Couturier connecting Lindblom connection. But at the same time, they're ruining the first unit, so it's confusing. I just don't understand the thought process of an NHL coach anymore.
Hence the B minus.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we talked about before, it's a simple fix. You just flip, a G and Voracek.
It's crazy that we can see it, but a coach coming in has probably watched tape on this previous power play and says, you know what, let me change that. And then it doesn't work, and they just don't change it back. I don't get it.
All right, so moving on to our final inter-segment bit here, the Rage Room. Guys, Steve, we'll start with you. What's pissing you off over the past week?
Incompetent coworkers.
Hear about
Sick
it.
of doing my competent coworker has been on vacation. Me, I have to do 90% of everything every fucking day. It's frustrating. And then when I look over, he's just there talking to himself and laughing about some bullshit he's gonna do after work. And I'm like, the fuck, man? This is basically your career. What the fuck are you doing? So yeah, that's reason enough.
All right, so there's your Rage Room. Shane, what about you? What's pissed you off?
Oh man. So here it is. I really like Nelson Aguilar, and I think that he's going to be a really good receiver. And
Still?
That's the thing. I finally gave up. I was like, I'm finally willing to say, all right, if it's going to happen, it is 1,000% never going to happen in Philadelphia. This guy stinks, and he's got to go. The problem is everyone kept their receipts on me. So when I say this, I'm like, dude, fucking Nelson Aguilar's just got to go. Like, that's it. And they're like, hold on. On November 3rd, 2017, you said he was the future.
That's so good. It's so fun to do.
I hate it so much because now I'm sitting here, I'm like, damn. I've never been so blatantly wrong about something in Philadelphia. It's just, I'm really having a tough time with it. So I want to smack the hell out of everyone who keeps receipts. You're smart, but I hate you.
It's hilarious.
to be
but
fair,
you can also
I feel
just
like a
say,
lot of
like,
it-
hey, I was wrong.
I feel like a lot of us have been off base with our projections, specifically in regards to the Eagles. So if it makes you feel any better, you're not alone there.
Appreciate
You guys
that.
aren't losing $5.
That's
they
true.
could- To be fair, they could still make the Super Bowl.
To be fair,
To be fair,
they can't.
They can.
we'll talk about that in a few minutes here on the Backyard Beers and Football, which will be coming up after this.
Shameless.
Anyway, my Rage Room thing for this week is coming from Bermuda, which is beautiful, balmy, 75-degree weather, back to shit-ass Pennsylvania in this fucking cold weather here, and getting me sick, which I'm sure you can all tell as you probably heard the coughing in the background. Seriously, fuck you, Mother Nature. I want warm weather again.
It's really nice of the AIDS clinic to let you do a podcast via Skype in their office. That's super sweet of them.
It was like the Make-A-Wish thing, pretty much. They wanted to let me do one last podcast before I die.
Oh, man. Well, that's good, man. Tell them we appreciate it. I don't know who's going to host this shit when you're done, so we're just going to hold a microphone to the tombstone.
And that was Rob.
That murmur.
Literally dying as this podcast ends here.
That
So
strange
with that,
pumping sound was Rob introducing us.
all right. So with that, we'll go to our final thoughts. Shane, we'll start with you. Final thoughts before we wrap up my life and this episode of the Disciples of Ed.
Oh, man. Rob, look, it's been really fun knowing you, and I appreciate that. It's a damn shame that you got to go out the way that you do. But that's what you get for sharing needles, kid.
I was just having the unprotected sex with the Bermudan women.
All right. Well, that's a lot more fun. But
Yeah, that's the one that I'll go with there.
I think that's the one you should go with.
Yeah.
It's a much better story. It's not the truth, and you and I know this, Rob. But it was not fun picking you up in Kensington. But no, my final thought is for Flyers fans, just be patient. I know that that's not something anyone in Philadelphia likes to hear, but it's going to be an up and down go, and just kind of ride it out.
All right, Steve, what do you got?
I don't think I do well on Skype shows.
Neither do
I end
I.
up like not knowing what to do while waiting for someone to respond. And this is the second straight Skype show where I'm using my e-cigarette magnet to pick up bottle caps. It's a problem. The ADD is a real issue with me right now.
Yeah, well, it's better than all of us being there in the studio in person and both of you catching AIDS. So
I guess that's fair, but I'm okay with dying.
Gotta be honest, man. Me too.
oh, way to be blunt about it. All right, so my final thought is if you're looking for something to eat during a Flyers game or during any sporting event, or if you're sitting here dying of fucking whatever fucking disease that I might have right now, and you want something to eat, go to Just Food. They're located in Buckingham Green. They've also got a location at Delaware Valley College. You can find them. You can hit them up via phone. It's 215-794-FOOD. Once again, Just Food. Treat yourself. Take it home. All right, everybody, thank you for listening to this episode of the Disciples of Ed. You can find us on Twitter at Disciples of Ed. Also, the Always Next Year podcast at ANY Podcast. You can find me at radio_Rob, although I'll no longer be tweeting because I will be 6 feet under. And Steve, where can we find you?
At Schmitty324. Let me tweet at you about previous Flyers that never actually made a career here because of poor coaching decisions.
And Shane, where can we find you on Twitter?
Shane_Mead.
All right, and you can also listen to us on iTunes, on Spotify, on Spreaker. If you're on iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review. If you do not, I will come out from beyond the grave and I will find you. You can also find us online at www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. Once again, thank you for listening to this episode of the Disciples of Ed. I will return from the dead next week for another episode.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.